Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about why I believe that we now have a technical and fundamental confirmation that the next leg of the Bitcoin bull market is starting. That's right, I believe that Bitcoin is about to go through a major rally that will send us all the way back up to $118,000 within the next week or so, and I believe mid-October, Bitcoin will be pushing new all-time highs. We're going to be breaking down exactly why I am so confident that Bitcoin is starting a new uptrend right now, so if you want to understand where Bitcoin is heading over the rest of the month of September and into the beginning part of October, then you found the right video. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. The very first thing that we have to talk about is down here on the hourly chart for Bitcoin. As you can see, we have established a very strong inverse head and shoulders pattern that we've been talking about all week. The level to look at thus far has been this particular downtrend right here, which constituted the neckline of the inverse head and shoulders pattern. Yesterday, we broke bullish above that inverse head and shoulders pattern neckline, and I told you that a back test was in order. And if Bitcoin was able to back test this level of resistance and then bounce off of it, this would be the technical confirmation that we needed to enter into a new uptrend. Well, that backtest has now been confirmed. Bitcoin backtested it one time and hit it perfectly. Then we went into a rally up to about $114,700, backtested just a few hours ago down to $113,500, and we are now in the rally once again. This is extremely bullish because it means that the inverse head and shoulders pattern is now validated because of that strong backtest. It means that Bitcoin has managed to set a significantly higher low, indicating that we might have an even steeper uptrending level of support forming over the next few days. And it means that with the inverse head and shoulders pattern confirmed, that we need to start looking at the price target. The price target for this inverse head and shoulders pattern is drawn by extrapolating the price difference between the neckline and the top of the head of the inverse head and shoulders pattern from the breakpoint. That would give us a short-term price target on Bitcoin of approximately $120,000. So we say the next stop is 118 because $120,000 is just a little bit above the next major zone of resistance that's right above our head. That would, of course, be the Fibonacci golden pocket, as you can see right here. When we draw a Fibonacci extension and retracement from the top of the most recent correction to the bottom, you can see the Fibonacci retracement level of 0.618 to 0.65 sits here at approximately $117,800 to $118,500. That golden pocket, which we can basically sum as $118,000, will be our next most likely stop for Bitcoin as we go into another leg of this rally. If we look at the visible range volume profile, you will also see that taking the last 2 to 3 months of data into account, the VRVP gives us a point of control sitting right here in the middle of that 0.618 to 0.65% Fibonacci golden pocket range also, which means our next target is very obviously $118,000. And for reasons that we'll be discussing a little bit later in this video, I believe that Bitcoin has all the fuel that it needs to go there with relative ease. One last thing I want to mention on this chart before we move on to our next one is that if Bitcoin does rally up to 118 and has a small corrective movement, for example, down to 115, this would actually create an even larger inverse head and shoulders pattern, as you can see right here, which would use the current inverse head and shoulders pattern simply as the head of, once again, the larger inverse head and shoulders pattern. So that's something that we're going to want to be looking out for. Because of the developments down here on the hourly chart and the developments that we're about to talk about, I firmly believe that Bitcoin will be rallying up to $118,000 by about a week from now. We're going to call it September the 17th, when the Federal Reserve makes their decision on cutting rates or not. All right, moving on to our next chart here, I want to talk about this chart starting on the 4-hourly chart. There are a couple of very important things that Bitcoin has done recently that have led us to see Bitcoin being very bullish. The first of which is that Bitcoin broke this downtrending level of resistance right here. We broke it with a technical confirmation right here. We then back tested, as you can see. We broke above the downtrend, back tested it, and bounced off of it. That meant that this bearish safety line was broken, indicating that a new uptrend was starting. Then, as we broke through the level of resistance that constituted the inverse head and shoulders pattern, this is simply the neckline, right, of the inverse head and shoulders pattern, we have now done the exact same thing. We broke through, we back tested, and we bounced. As you can see here on these shorter term time frames, we broke through, back tested, and bounced. We even on the shorter term time frames down here on the hourly chart have higher highs and higher lows, indicating a very aggressive and bullish bull flag is forming. So that's very good news, and once again gives us confidence that Bitcoin is returning to 118,000. But if we zoom out to the daily chart, there are several other factors that we want to look at here. I have drawn over the last 18 months every time that something in particular has happened on the MACD and something in particular that has happened on the daily chart RSI. The very first thing I want to look at here is the daily chart RSI. We're going to be looking at these red vertical lines. Every red vertical line for the last 18 months represents a time when Bitcoin's RSI on the daily chart broke with confidence above the 14 interval moving average. You can see that this happened for Bitcoin on September the 1st of this year, and we've now seen a rally over the last 11 days as a result of that. The last time that this occurred was right here on June 23rd, and as you can see, that happened right here at the very bottom when we dropped back down to sub $100,000 for just a couple of hours, and we bounced. That was the last time that we saw RSI do the same thing that it's doing right now, and following that movement, Bitcoin would go on to rally $23,500 in 23 days. That's $1,000 a day, guys. Very, very powerful. Before that, we also saw another confirmed breakout above the RSI right here. And by the way, these are confirmed breakouts above the 14 interval moving average on the RSI, below the midline of the RSI, indicating that they are transitionary movements from bearish to bullish. These are early warning signs that the sentiment in the market is shifting from a bearish sentiment to a bullish sentiment. Never forget that RSI is at its core a sentiment oscillator. Now, we see that when we broke above the 14 moving average here on the RSI, Bitcoin just happened to be at the very bottom of this corrective movement. Zooming out, you will see that we're discussing this bottom right here. This is the exact same kind of RSI breakout that we saw here in June, and it's the same exact kind of RSI breakout that we saw relatively recently. So far, we're looking at an RSI breakout right here, here, and here, each of which has led to a major rally, and I expect this one will lead to a major rally as well. There's one more data point I want to bring to your attention, and that would be back here in September of 2024. Approximately a year ago, we saw the exact same kind of formation right here where we would break above the 14 interval moving average, go into a major rally, and that happened right here at the very bottom of this about year sideways corrective movement before Bitcoin would go into a major rally. So far, when we see the RSI have a bullish breakout like this, we generally speaking are seeing very large rallies on Bitcoin, and we would be expecting the exact same thing to happen right now. Now, I also want to look at the MACD because it gives us a very similar story. In blue, I have charted every time that Bitcoin has seen a bullish MACD cross below the zero level. Very similar methodology to what we did with the RSI. You can see that this happened one time just a few days ago on the 5th of September. It also happened back here on the 25th of June. It happened back here on the 11th of April, the 15th of March, and going back, we also saw that it happened here on September the 11th last year, and it happened here on the 11th of July. Looking at these blue lines, you can see a very similar story. These bullish MACD crosses are generally predicting major rallies in Bitcoin. And so when we see the RSI and the MACD forming these, building these exact same formations that we have been seeing over the last many years on Bitcoin, it gives us a great deal of confidence that Bitcoin is about to go into the next leg of the uptrend because history rhymes. It is cyclical. It's not very often that Bitcoin is going to go into a major rally and not flash the exact same signals every single time. So, from a short-term technical analysis perspective, I'm very confident that Bitcoin is going into an uptrend. From a long-term technical analysis perspective, I'm very confident that Bitcoin is going into an uptrend. From the medium-term technical analysis perspective, I also want to mention one more thing before we move on to fundamentals, and that would be the Bollinger Bands. Developed by John Bollinger in the later part of the last century, the Bollinger Bands are incredibly powerful at predicting market movements, and the Bollinger Bands right now on Bitcoin are looking absolutely phenomenal here. If you look at the 8-hour chart on Bitcoin, you will see that a constriction took place on Bitcoin, the likes of which we have not seen in quite some time. You can see right here, I have it charted right here, constricted Bollinger Bands. You can see that. The Bollinger Bands on the 4-hour, 6-hour, and 8-hour chart all became extremely constricted, extremely tight, indicating that volatility had massively dropped. This is what we've talked about in past. In fact, we talked about this yesterday. When you see volatility drop off a cliff, generally speaking, you can expect a major increase in volatility to begin sometime soon. We saw a very volatile movement to the downside as Bitcoin started trading sideways. Then the Bollinger Bands constricted a great deal here, and you can even see that we're trading on the outside of the Bollinger Bands, depending on what exact chart you're looking at. We're riding the top of the Bollinger Bands right now, indicating extreme strength from the Bitcoin bulls, supporting the idea that Bitcoin is going into a major uptrend. Now, as with any good technical analysis, we do want to talk about invalidation. How would we invalidate this argument that we're seeing a major breakout on Bitcoin right now? Well, the easiest way to come up with an invalidation would just be to say if Bitcoin sets a lower low, then we are no longer in an uptrend. The most recent major low that Bitcoin has is right here at $110,700. If Bitcoin were to fall all the way down to $110,700, then this is where we would be invalidating this movement, and we would say that this is just one giant bear flag and Bitcoin's going lower. Unless Bitcoin, therefore, drops below $110,700, I am quite confident that within 7 to 8 days, you are going to see Bitcoin trading at or above $118,000. And for reasons I'm about to discuss, I also think that you're going to see Bitcoin approaching, if not breaking, all-time high at some point in the middle part of the next month. So let's keep it moving here. One of the big pieces of analysis that I want to bring to your attention on the fundamental front is what's going on with the ETFs. As you probably know, ETF inflows have stalled over the last month and a half or so at here at about $55 billion of total inflows. That has largely ended. As of yesterday, September the 10th, 2025, Bitcoin saw $741 million of inflows, almost $1 billion into the Bitcoin ETFs across the board. Much of that coming into Fidelity and coming into IBIT. This is very, very exciting because it indicates that retail and institutional players agree with what my analysis says, that we're about to see a major uptrend. In other words, the people that know what they're doing are longing Bitcoin right now. And they're putting a stop loss down below 110,000. But they're longing Bitcoin right now on the bet that it's going to return to all-time high, and you basically come up with a trade that looks kind of like this. If you go out to the 4-hourly chart on Bitcoin, you basically set up a trade, looks a little something like this. You enter here, you put your exit down here at 110.5, you put your take profit up here at 125 or higher, and you have a risk-reward ratio of approximately 2.5. Now, you can come up with different ways to enter this trade, of course, and mess around with entries, wait for different kinds of entries. But in general, this is basically the trade that people are looking at right now. And it makes a lot of sense because it looks like Bitcoin is building one massive inverse head and shoulders pattern with another inverse head and shoulders pattern in the middle of it, with another inverse head and shoulders pattern at the bottom of it. This is a textbook massive bull flag continuation of the entire bull market. The institutional players see it, and I hope you see it because you've been watching the Crypto Jeb YouTube channel. Now, one last thing I want to mention on this chart is this parabolic curve. If Bitcoin does manage to break above this parabolic curve here at about $115,000, that will also be one more lovely technical confirmation that we're moving to the upside. Now, a couple of other things we want to talk about. We now have some data coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics on CPI. If you've not been following, CPI last month on major category on all items was 2.7% year over year. That rose over the last 30 days to 2.9%. So inflation has heated up. Generally speaking, what you see happen is that the Federal Reserve will cut rates when they see inflation coming down. The issue is the Federal Reserve has a great deal of pressure on them from the president, from the public, and basically from the entire world to cut rates, because the idea that keeping rates high lowers inflation seems to be an antiquated idea that not too many people are very fond of anymore. This is most likely, in past, it most likely would have stopped a rate cut from happening, but this is most likely going to actually assist in a rate cut happening here in September, which is going to be happening in about 6 days. CME Group has basically guaranteed that we're going to have at least a 25 basis point rate cut, and when that occurs, that is most likely going to send risk on markets like Bitcoin through the moon. And so the setup for the rest of September and early October could not possibly be more bullish, so long as that rate cut does in fact happen, because the hype alone from it is probably going to drive hundreds of billions of dollars of market capitalization into Bitcoin. Last thing I want to mention here is that if Bitcoin does go through a major rally and rallies up above about $115,000, an absolute massive amount of liquidations are going to be triggered. Right here, Bitcoin only needs to rally to 115.7 to trigger probably over $1 billion in short liquidations. We've seen Bitcoin ranging here with highs approximately $114,000 to $115,000 over the last few days. If we break up to $116,000, you are going to have a short squeeze of biblical proportions, and it's going to lead Bitcoin into a major rally. By the way, if you recall me saying that the invalidation point is down below 110.5, this is part of the reason that we can tell that that's a good idea, because this is where most of the long liquidations are. They're right down here at 110.5. So if you're going long, it's not a bad idea to have a liquidation or a stop loss. Excuse me, not a liquidation, just a stop loss down below 110.5. And if you're in a short trade, oh, well, God help you. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. And if you have not already, make sure to join 2bit, because I want you to be able to join our Discord server for free. You know what I love about our Discord server? Our Discord server is growing so fast. I've been doing a lot of work over here, and we've even got charting going up over here now. A lot of my charts here, you will see them getting posted days in advance before they go up on YouTube, where I'm doing my technical analysis, breaking it down, and explaining to you where I believe that Bitcoin is going to go before YouTube or X ever sees it. On top of that, we've also got a bunch of world-class technical analysts over here that are doing their own technical analysis that you can learn from, doing their own trading, and overall just making money and having a great time. If you want to join our group of traders and analysts, you can do so for free. All you have to do is sign up for 2bit, which is the exchange that we use. If you sign up for 2bit with the link in the description box down below and deposit $100, we will give you access to the first cohort trading group for free for a year. All you have to do is take a screenshot of your $100 deposit, and you will get access to the first cohort for free for a year. So make sure to sign up for 2bit. Come and trade with us on the best cryptocurrency trading platform that you can find in the cryptocurrency space. Where do you think Bitcoin is going? Are we about to go into a very major uptrend and bull market here in the month of September? Do you agree with my opinion that we're going to be rallying to 125 to at least to perhaps even up to $130,000 by mid-October? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comment section down below. Again, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.